Sup, everybody, and welcome to Press On Sports, otherwise known as the Jack Vita Show. That's right. So this podcast is changing its name from Press On Sports to the Jack Vita Show. That will be effective sometime over the next week or so, but I didn't want to welcome you in with a different podcast name because then you might think you're listening to the wrong thing. So today's going to be a fun show. This has been in the works for a little bit. I wanted to talk NBA free agency and player movement and all the stuff that's going on right now. I was initially going to have Andrew Raby come on. We were waiting for Kawhi to make his decision, but by the time Kawhi had decided, Raby was out. He's down in Miami. He'll come on another time. But lucky for us, I've got a great guy filling in his place. This is a guy who has made the leap from basketball manager to grad assistant at Valparaiso University with the Valpo men's basketball team. Big-time hoops fan, Peter Funk. You bringing the funk tonight, Peter?
Oh, you already know I am. That gave me chills. It was cool to be introduced, because you hear so many podcasts and they always do that, what you just did. Now it's like, it's me, it's cool.
Yeah, you're a big podcast listener, right?
I am. A lot of college hoops, TED Talks, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool to be on a podcast, and it's really cool to be on yours.
And it's cool to have you here. It was also cool getting lunch with you a couple days ago, coming into Valpo and visiting.
Yeah,
that was
man,
fun.
It was like old times, we used to get lunch all the time, so it was a really nice surprise too.
Yeah, that was fun. So I made a quick trip into Valpo a couple days ago. I was driving in that direction, and I met up with Peter and Jason Karras, who's going to be coming on the podcast later this week to talk Toy Story 4. Peter did not know, so it was a big surprise. Said hi to coaches. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So, Peter, we're going to be hanging out tonight. It's a Wednesday evening right now, July 10th, as we are recording this, while the ESPYs are on, and I guess neither of us are watching.
Yeah, I'll probably maybe watch later when we're done, when I see the big name awards, and that'll be all right.
Yeah, I totally forgot. The ESPYs used to be such a big event for me as a kid.
Right,
but
yeah, same here.
Yeah, I haven't watched much over the last few years.
That's okay.
I think Justin Timberlake, he was like the peak ESPYs host. He was amazing.
Yeah, he was really good. The year, so it was Steve Carell was the host when they did the decision.
Oh, no, that was actually Seth Meyers was the host, but Steve Carell did that sketch. It was really funny.
That was one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen. was when him and Paul Rudd did the decision. That was hilarious.
That was probably like good emotional healing for you.
You know
right
what?
After.
It absolutely was, because that was a tough summer, but that was hilarious. I think I still laugh at that. Like, I saw it on Twitter the other day, and I still just died laughing when I saw it.
Yeah, Timberlake was great, and then I do think those 2 years of Seth Meyers, which is like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, he's a really funny dude. I always liked him on Saturday Night Live, so he did a good job.
Yeah, he's just a great comedy writer. And then Rob Riggle was good. And then I think everything post then has been kind of okay.
Like Peyton Manning hosted, and then that was weird to me. I mean, they usually get a comedian to do it, not really an ex-athlete, but
yeah, Tracy Morgan is hilarious. So
I do think he's really funny. I'm a huge 30 Rock fan. So
great! I love 30 Rock.
I love 30 Rock, and he is so funny on that show.
That's a deal breaker, ladies.
It's an awesome show. I'm sure he's doing a great job.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. So let's talk some basketball.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Let's just jump right in. Kawhi Leonard signs with the Clippers late on, I believe that was Friday night.
Extremely late Friday night.
Were you shocked by this, Peter?
What really shocked me was the Paul George part of it.
Yeah.
But, he had kind of made it very clear for a long time that he's from Southern Cal, and he likes the warm weather. And the Raptors kind of knew what they were getting themselves into. You know, they knew he was kind of a rental, and I mean, it paid off for him perfectly. I mean, I can't imagine a better rental to win their first ever NBA championship. Part of me said, I was like, okay, I really couldn't see him going to the Lakers, so I thought it was either going to be he returns to the Raptors, or he goes back home to the Clippers. Because the Clippers, I mean, they still have a nice roster even before Paul George.
Yeah.
And I think they could have, I don't know if they would have been an NBA championship caliber, but if Kawhi had gone there, they probably would have been top 3-4 team in the West, which is still really good. So I thought, that plus the home proximity and the climate all factored in for him. But what really surprised me was the whole Paul George element. I mean, I don't know about what you thought, but that kind of came just way out of left field. I don't think anybody really saw that coming.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was not expecting that, and it's just so crazy because whenever you hear about an NBA player getting potentially traded, we hear about we spend a month like, oh, this guy might go here. He's unhappy. We had no idea Paul George was unhappy.
Right. Woj usually has something going, like I'm hearing rumblings of this, or a certain star has kind of made it clear, and this team has made its intentions. But, I mean, with this, what was interesting is the story was like, Paul George came to the Thunder like a week in advance and said, I want to trade to the Clippers, and or at least a trade to play with Kawhi. And you're right. Like, nobody said anything about it. There was no news of it, and that was the biggest bombshell.
Yeah.
Was that Paul George was also going to the Clippers, especially because I thought he was going to LA last summer, whether it was the Lakers or the Clippers, because he and Kawhi were the same type deal. They were from California, wanted to play in LA, and when he re-signed with the Thunder, I was kind of like, all right, playing in LA really is just not that important to him. And then this move happened, so that was really shocking.
Yeah, all of that. I was thinking the same exact thing. I'm like, he had the chance to go out to L.A. last summer. He turned it down, and it does. We'll get to talking about how this affects the Lakers in a little bit.
Yeah,
but it just seemed like neither of these guys really had a huge urgency to go play with LeBron.
Right, which I mean is kind of refreshing in a way. They keep joking on Twitter about the Thanos line, perfectly balanced. But it would have been they would have ran through the East if it was Kawhi, AD, and LeBron.
The West.
Oh, the West. Yeah, you're right. But I agree. There's not really this urgency to play with LeBron. I think Kawhi just kind of realized that he's kind of a top 3 player in the league now. And he's won a championship when he's the best player on the team. And players like that don't really need to play second fiddle to LeBron. And with LeBron, you're almost always going to play, second fiddle. He's going to be the guy. So it was kind of refreshing, but it made sense to me in that sense. Like, Kawhi probably didn't want to play second fiddle to LeBron. He's realized he's a top 3 player in the league. And what did you think?
Well, yeah, I never really understood the Lakers thing from Kawhi's perspective. I want to do a little exercise here, Peter. Let's role play this meeting between Kawhi and LeBron. I'll be LeBron, you be Kawhi, okay?
All right, here we go.
All right, Kawhi. So you just won a title as the best player on a team. A lot of people are talking about you being maybe the best player in the league. Maybe it's your league now. How would you like to be in my shadow for the next couple of years and be the second or third scoring option?
Yeah, see, right then and there. He would have probably walked out of the meeting,
Kawhi wouldn't have said anything back.
He would have said no words. Knowing how Kawhi is, he would have said no words and would probably just look at LeBron and turn around and walked out of the meeting. Especially just LeBron is just such a dominant personality, too.
Yeah.
And, Kawhi obviously is not really a dominant personality, but he is kind of that alpha dog mentality. And at this point in his career, after he's won an NBA championship, he's not going to want to come in and have LeBron tell him to do things differently or, do things LeBron's way. It's just, it's something that at his stage in his career, he probably isn't really accustomed to or doesn't really want to do.
Yeah. And so we were doing that role playing, and there was really, as I was talking, I'm like, wait, there's really nothing that Peter can say because Kawhi doesn't talk a whole lot.
Yeah, he's impressive in that sense. He's pretty stone cold, even keeled.
Yeah, he kept this whole thing on lockdown.
Right.
It was really impressive.
Right, but I like that about him though, because that's how he is in the games too. Nothing rattles him. If he makes a mistake or gets a bad call, or if he does something well, he's always locked in. 100% of the time, which is amazing.
Here's the other part of the pitch. Now, Kawhi, you just won a title. You might be the best player in the league. Everyone seems to really like you. No one has any beef with you.
Mm-mm.
How would you feel about joining a super team and having a lot of people dislike you now?
Yeah, there you go. It's like the Miami Heat all over again,
And I think a lot of guys are really aware of what Durant went through the last few years, and Durant
right.
did not enjoy that, clearly.
Yeah, no, I mean, his situation was unique, but you're right. The same reception happened with the Heat. With Kevin Durant, took a lot of flack for his decision. I think you're right. I think now, especially in this free agent climate, they're kind of aware of. And Kawhi was praised for his decision. People really responded well to him not going to the Lakers. So I agree. I think that has a big part of it.
What I love about Kawhi is that this guy has shown that if you want to have a brand or if you want to create a legacy or whatever, you don't have to say a bunch of ridiculous stuff just to get attention. You just let your playing do the talking. It's old school. It's kind of boss, if you ask me.
No, I completely agree. It's amazing how he's able to construct this reputation, this personality just by his game, just by his mannerisms or his lack thereof, Yeah. I've never thought about that. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the whole act like you've been there Chuck Noll thing with the Steelers in the 70s.
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's something so professional and respectful about it that you're just like, wow, that guy has been in the end zone so many times. Like, he's not going to act like it's his first time there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You probably learned that with the Spurs when he just started. I mean, that's kind of how they approached their whole run. That was just how their mentality was every single year. And that's Pop's big thing is, come in, do your job. And, it was probably a good lesson for him to learn. Not that he was different from that in college, but I think that I'm assuming that Spurs culture probably cemented that in him at a young point in his career, which is really good.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think it was a great marriage for 6 years or however long that was. And then it did hit an untimely, just all of a sudden just came apart. We won't speculate on that. That's been talked about plenty of times for the last year. But let's talk a little bit before we jump over to some of these other teams. Let's just talk about this Clippers team. I really like what this team can do defensively on the perimeter.
I really do too. I don't think enough people are thinking about that. That Kawhi and Paul George are two of the top defenders in the NBA, and can guard multiple positions. And then they re-signed Patrick Beverley, which is huge because that's he's the same thing, one of the best on-ball defenders. Montrezl Harrell is just a beast down low. I mean, they were a playoff team that actually competed really well with the Warriors in the first round without two of probably the top 10 players in the NBA. So they really and they kept all those pieces. So I mean, they built that kind of off of grit and grimy, and they have obviously an excellent coach in Doc Rivers who's been there before. And so you're right, they're going to have a really, really tough defensive team next year because they have two superstars who are also just terrific defenders. Yeah,
they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. I believe they are the odds-on favorites to win the title at the moment.
Yeah, they are now. They are now, definitely. But it's going to be a really fun year in the NBA because it could go so many ways. Because you say the Clippers are the favorite, and I'd still say they are. But if I told you, the Lakers will win the West, or the the Warriors will win the West. No one's gonna look at me weird. You know, I'm like, yeah, I could see that happening. You know, which would make it such a really fun year because we haven't had that. You know, it's been kind of a given that the Warriors were going to win the West for the last 5 or 6 years. And then the Cavs were the same way with LeBron. So now it's a lot more fun because it's a lot more wide open, which is going to be really cool.
It looks like we're setting up for a new decade of basketball because the 2010s were just marked with, it started with the decision, the first year of the decade. And we've had so much player movement over those 10 years. And not all of it has been bad because I think right now a lot of these guys are like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to. A lot of them are like, we don't want to deal with that flack. We don't think it's a good way to win.
Damian Lillard just came out and said that a couple of days ago. He's like, that's not really me. That's not really who I am.
Yeah.
And he showed that he signed extension after extension with Portland.
Yeah.
And he's committed to that. I mean, there are a lot. Giannis is the same way. There's a lot of players that are a lot like that. The way you just described.
Yeah. And so I think. Now we're entering into 2020. That's when next season will end. And maybe this is the way the league, who knows? The league can change really quickly.
Oh, man.
But we're heading into
found
it.
That out.
It's going to be wide open this year, which it hasn't been like at any point in this decade. It's been dynasty after dynasty, or maybe not dynasty, but teams that repeat the same players and teams in the finals every single year, it seems. But things are shaking up, and all I want to say is thank you, Kawhi. Thank you for ending the Warriors, and thank you for making things interesting.
I know it's amazing. He's ended the Warriors dynasty. Didn't go to the Lakers. He really played a huge part in that. It's awesome.
All right, so now let's talk about the Lakers, and this was really interesting, the timing of all this, because clearly they were all in on Kawhi, which I understand he's the best player on the market, in my opinion.
Gotta be.
I think a lot of people.
I agree with you. I think he was the best player on the market.
Yeah, that's not a hot take.
Right.
So, best player on the free agent market, just won a title. Everyone wants a piece of Kawhi right now. Like, you can't blame them for it. However, I think they would have been better off if they wanted to sign a big ticket free agent. I think they'd be better off with a fast guard who could shoot it, like Kemba.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. With my only doubt is I don't know. I don't know if it was ever reported or talked about how receptive Kemba was to going to the Lakers. I think he would have. I completely agree because I think, their front court is pretty solidified. I mean, people don't give Kyle Kuzma enough credit.
Yeah.
Or the fact that the Lakers were able to keep him in the Anthony Davis trade was really impressive. And so I'm not a huge Boogie fan, but still having those three, LeBron, Kuzma, and AD is a really, really strong front court. But their backcourt, it does lack a little bit. So I think you're right. Kemba would have probably been the best fit there. And they could have given him a max contract. But it seemed like from the day that the free agency started that Kemba was just kind of locked in on going to the Celtics.
Which is understandable.
Which is extremely understandable, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a good fit for him. But I don't know how much the Lakers pursued Kemba or how receptive Kemba was, but I agree. I think he would have been it's hard to say you should pick Kemba over Kawhi, but I agree. I think Kemba would have been an absolutely perfect fit for that team, especially because he can catch and shoot it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a dynamic scoring guard, and he can score without bringing the ball up the court and can score in a lot of ways, which you need that if you're going to be playing with LeBron James. Yeah,
I think the catch and shoot aspect is really important, like you said, if you're going to play with LeBron, because he's ball dominant. And again, that's why some guys might not want to play with him, because they want to have the ball in their hands and be able to do some stuff, which I understand. Yeah. So let's talk about the Lakers' construction of this roster, because I've heard takes both sides. Some people like it a lot. Some people think they totally whiffed because they waited so long on Kawhi. And really, the other thing that we should also note is that there was another wrinkle in this whole ordeal that if Kawhi had not signed by Saturday, that the Davis trade was going to get stalled because they had to put a certain amount of salary into their roster before the Davis trade. Did you understand any of that?
Yeah, a little bit. I just know that AD had to. Yeah, you kind of summed it up pretty well.
Okay.
I didn't follow that closely enough.
Yeah, so it was something where they had to have a certain amount of guys on their roster and money committed before that trade could go through because they only had like 3 or 4 guys on their roster at the time. So they were able to sign some guys, but they did, there were a lot of free agents who came off the board and I'm not even talking about stars. I'm talking about mid-level, just good role player guys who came off the board because they waited so long on Kawhi. So, Peter, what did you think of how the Lakers responded to not getting Kawhi and building the rest of this roster?
Yeah, it's just tough because, I feel like there's only kind of so much you can do. But bringing Rondo back, I think it was a good decision. I'm just really not a huge DeMarcus Cousins fan. So that move was a little questionable to me. But,
why? Give me, I'm not saying you're wrong or anything. I'm just curious.
No, you're right. I should back that up. So, if this were maybe 3-4 years ago, he did play with AD in New Orleans. But to me, I'm watching him with the Warriors last year. He just didn't seem bought into what the Warriors were doing. And that probably wasn't on purpose. I don't think he was being selfish. I just don't think he was. He's used to being one of the star players, and a lot of times the Warriors' bigs just kind of set a lot of screens. And so to me, he looked kind of like a shell of himself where he wasn't really a dominant scorer. He's not a above-the-rim type athlete. And he wasn't really picking up what the Warriors were putting down. So to me, he's just kind of a shell of himself. So I don't know necessarily. I see the attraction because he played with AD and because he was an all-star. But to me, I just don't know if he looked like a shell of himself last year. I don't know if that's really a productive move for the Lakers to bring him on.
Yeah, I think he's just in such a weird spot in his career.
Right.
It's like, and with the Achilles being such a bad injury.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they didn't have to spend a whole lot of money to get him.
Yeah,
which is obviously good.
They could probably get rid of him easily if they need to.
Yeah, they definitely could. It was just one of those moves where I'm just kind of like, the risk doesn't or outweighs the reward in my opinion. He just seems like, especially for the team that they're trying to put together. I don't know if it was the best move.
Yeah. What do you think about some other moves?
It's funny. I actually really like their draft picks. And the guys that they're bringing onto their team. A couple of Chicago guys actually. So Zach Norvell and Taylor Tucker. I actually think they're gonna help them a lot. I'm trying to think of some of their other moves.
Well, they got Danny Green and Avery Bradley.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot about Danny Green. That was a great move.
Yeah.
Just because he adds more defense and more leadership than I think people give him credit for. So he obviously is a great 3-point shooter. But he'll bring he's a 2-time NBA champion, and he'll bring kind of that Spurs attitude, some leadership. I think that was a really good move. Quinn Cook, I think, should be really good off the bench. He had some good spurts for the Warriors. Avery Bradley isn't quite what he was last year or the last couple of years, but he's still a sound veteran defender, a shot maker. So yeah, I think they did. I thought they did a pretty nice job, except for maybe Boogie, of kind of piecing it together. But you're right. I knew they signed a 2-guard. I couldn't remember it was Danny Green. But I think I do think that's a really good move for for them. I like Danny Green a lot.
Yeah, I like Danny Green and I like Avery Bradley because of the defense aspect. And
Right,
it's
right, which
really
is huge.
important to have a guy like Danny Green on the perimeter who can shoot it when you have these two big guys in the lane there to clog up the lane. So you need to space the floor
Right.
somehow.
No, I completely agree. I think that, I mean, especially that's just how LeBron just is. I mean, LeBron he likes to have shooters around him. So I thought bringing him on was a really smart decision. Somebody who can shoot it and is unselfish and will still give you really good minutes.
I think the Lakers did the best that they could given the circumstances.
Yeah.
However, I mean, I do think that there were probably some guys that they could have gotten that were somewhere in between some of these minimum guys and the max guys that they targeted that they could have gotten that could have helped. But this is a good roster. I'm gonna be honest, the one concern, the Lakers had this bad year last year, and LeBron's turning 35 this year.
Yeah.
Peter, you would remember the last good year Kobe had. That year he ruptured his Achilles. I believe he was 34 then, and he came out of high school. And it's just, it's hard for these guys to just keep doing it. At a certain point, there are some diminishing returns. So I just don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think people got to remind themselves of that LeBron is still LeBron, but he doesn't have a whole lot of years left. Especially he does a really good job taking care of his body, but his body and his athleticism, it goes through a lot on a given season. So you're right. I think people got to remember that he may not have too many years left, especially not in his prime. I think he's probably past his prime, but still he'll have some good years. But I don't know how many of those he has left.
I think if he wanted to turn into a low post player, I mean, I think he could have a really nice second career in that spot. But at the same time, like, I can't really see him wanting to move over to doing something different.
No, I can't see him either. He's still the alpha dog mentality.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that'll ever change.
All right, let's talk about the Celtics. This Kemba move was big. I think it seemed to develop pretty quickly. I don't think a lot of people were expecting it.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to develop as quickly as it did. I figured Kemba was probably leaving Charlotte. He's given them a lot of really good years, and they're pretty mismanaged, and they haven't done a lot for him in terms of bringing talent and pieces around him.
But hey, they got Terry Rozier.
Yeah, that was an interesting move too because they paid him a ton of money.
Yeah, they did.
And I'm like, I like Terry Rozier, but is he worth? I mean, is he worth $58 million? I mean, I don't know if he's worth that much money.
Yeah.
They could have probably used that to go out and get some other pieces, but that was very shocking to me. I did not expect that, but. The Celtics, they're looking to build talent, but they kind of had to reconstruct their locker room a little bit after last season. And I'm a huge Brad Stevens fan, so I always think the best of him. But, Kemba, I think that they probably identified early on as someone who could add benefit to both the locker room and the court. And so they probably zeroed on him very quickly and decided to bring him in, and they're still a contender. They still have a lot of really good pieces even after Kyrie and Al Horford left. So I think it'll actually end up being a really good fit for Kemba, especially if Jason Tatum can develop into an all-star. I think it'll be even a better fit.
Yeah, I think it's a better, like you just said, better fit for Jason Tatum to be playing with Kemba than with Kyrie. Yeah. Because we saw Tatum play his best ball when Kyrie was out in that playoff stretch.
Right. Oh my gosh, he was awesome.
Yeah.
He was so good. I remember watching that and I was like, I obviously he probably should have been the top pick, but I'm like, this guy's a rookie doing this, and I'm like, he's gonna be a top 5 player in the NBA in the next couple of years. I mean, his game is just so smooth and it just translates so well, and But you're right; it kind of frees it up a little bit, where the focus can kind of be on him, and Kemba's not as much of a dominant personality or anything like that. So yeah, I think it was a really good move for that whole organization.
Yeah, the Horford departure stings a little bit for Celtics fans, I'm sure, because
that was so weird to me.
Yeah,
because he wanted a 4-year deal, and they said we're only going to give you 3, and so he said, "All right, well I'm walking." Which I was like, huh. I mean, and they're pretty. I mean, they don't really have a whole lot in the post anymore. They signed Enes Kanter, but I mean, Al Horford was kind of holding down the fort for them in their front court. So it was very interesting to me for them to just kind of let him walk like that.
Al Horford, in my opinion, has been underrated over the last couple of years with the Celtics.
Oh yeah.
I really got annoyed when people would be like, "Oh, Al Horford, the 24th guy on the All-Star team," when he was last year. I thought he could have been the Defensive Player of the Year. What he can do for your team defensively, but also helping you space the floor with his shot.
Yeah, he's a surprisingly good shooter.
Yeah, he developed that over the years in the association. Didn't have it in college, but. The other thing with him is he's just a great veteran leadership guy that I know we see it in baseball a lot, that clubs always want to sign a veteran guy like that for the young players, especially right now when everyone is building their roster on these rookie contract guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Horford in Philly, he could be a good mentor for those guys, although it's going to be a little odd just with having 2 big front court guys in him and Embiid, and then Simmons also being a 6'9".
Yeah, that was weird to me too. I agree with you. I think it's a really good move from trying to help those guys mature, because you're right, he's a veteran presence. But I mean, they lose Jimmy Butler, and I'm just kind of like, Horford isn't really quick enough to bring him out. He's a pick and pop guy, so he'll catch and shoot, but he's not really going to take you off the dribble. So you're right. You got to have 2 big bodies down there, and Ben Simmons is huge as well.
And Tobias is like 6'8" too, I want to say.
Right. It's just going to be. I mean, I guess that works well because they get a huge lineup, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting for me.
I'm going to pitch you one free agent for the Celtics to replace Horford at center. There's a guy who hasn't been scooped up yet that I like. Do you have anyone in mind who I'm thinking of?
No, I'm trying to think who you're going to say.
Robin Lopez.
Oh, I thought he was scooped up.
Was he?
Did he? I thought he was going to the Bucks with his brother, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, let me look that up real quick.
But you know what though? I think if he is still available, he would be great for them.
Oh, you are right.
Oh, okay.
I was picturing him being like this great defensive guy who works his tail off, who could not the same player as Al Horford, but I think would be a nice guy who would fit in with their culture.
Right, because if you think about the roster they kind of got right now, you got 4 really good perimeter players. You got Kemba, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, 4 really good perimeter players. So I think kind of a hustle, rim runner, finisher kind of guy would be great, which is what I think they have in mind for Enes Kanter. But I agree. I think Robin Lopez would have been awesome for them. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to create a bigger role for Robert Williams this year. He played at A&M.
Yeah, he's a great player. He's just had some kind of off the court issues that have concerned people. But maybe the Celtics whipped him into shape. Maybe they got him all figured out now. But if he is kind of whipped into shape with this off court stuff, I mean he's a really, really good player. And if he could put it all together, I think that would be a smart move. But, he's got a lot of red flags.
All right. Well, we have not brought up the Brooklyn Nets yet. We need to talk about the Brooklyn Nets. Before that, was there anything other thoughts you want to toss in on these last couple teams we talked about with the Sixers?
No, it was pretty thorough.
Okay, good. All right, we're covering ground pretty quick. I like this. This is good.
Yeah, this is good.
All right, Peter. The Durant and Kyrie thing, they go to Brooklyn. Was this something that caught you off guard?
Slightly. And the reason I say that is because I had not ever appreciated the relationship that Kyrie and Kevin Durant had. Um, I always kind of knew that, LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh were all really good friends and did stuff in the off season and played for Team USA together and all this stuff. I hadn't appreciated that KD and Kyrie were close or knew each other like that. So it makes more sense to me now they wanted to play together. But to me, I was just kind of like, he's got a great thing going in Golden State, and if once he's healthy and once Clay is healthy, I mean, there's really nobody who's going to beat them. I mean, they're just when those three are in the game together, they're so hard to beat because you can't leave Steph, you can't leave Clay. So if you take them out of the way, Kevin Durant can pretty much score the ball wherever he is. So there's really no stopping them. So to me, I was kind of like, all right, if I'm KD, why not just stay with the Warriors and just keep on winning? But I see the appeal now. Like you mentioned earlier, he got a lot of flack for this decision. He had never won a championship. He got to win a championship. And so I see why he did what he did now. But it did catch me off guard a little bit at first.
I wasn't expecting it either. You do start to wonder if there was some sort of a part where his relationship with the team started to fracture. Was it
you're right. Yeah.
Was it the Draymond stuff? Was it stuff with the medical staff? Who knows, but it brought him to Brooklyn. I was not expecting it, really, because it felt like 10 years ago, it was almost 10 years ago, we kept hearing all the time, Jay-Z with the Nets, and he's buddies with LeBron, and LeBron's going to want to play with his buddy Jay-Z, or play for his buddy Jay-Z.
Yeah, Brooklyn was like a huge destination. You're right, it was about like 10 years ago. It was like, I'll go to, because that was when they moved from New Jersey to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like, okay, go to Brooklyn, go play for the Nets. It's like the cool thing to do.
And we heard about it for 10 years, and no one bit the apple on that.
No, and then they lost all their draft picks in that Kevin Garnett trade, and they've actually done a really good job.
Yeah, they have
afloat with the lack of talent that they've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did not feel like a desirable free agent destination for me. But I see why Kevin Durant did what he did. But it's a place that you don't really hear about, Brooklyn.
It's interesting. It feels like the tone and the viewpoint that a lot of fans have had on Durant for the last 2 years or 3 years has really shifted over the last month. There are a lot of people gained a lot of respect for him going out in that game 5, I believe that was. Yeah, game 5. Right. Yeah, and then so they gained a lot of respect. Then they hated seeing him get injured. And then it's kind of like pro wrestling. I don't know if you've ever followed that, but it's like
not quite.
So in pro wrestling, you have a guy who's like they call the face and the heel, and the heel is the villain, and sometimes the face becomes the heel, or you could also make the Dark Knight reference. Sometimes you live long enough to become the villain.
Oh yeah,
you die a hero. It's like he died a hero in that game.
Right. Yeah, and I like that analogy. Well, I love that movie, but that's a good analogy because you're right. It ended up because now he's going to have to miss most, if not all, of this next season when he wasn't fully healthy, but the Warriors were, and it was an elimination game. And, I mean, honestly, he scored, 12 points in that game? Something like that? 4 for 3?
I don't know.
It's something like that, and that pushed them over the edge. I mean, they won that game by 1 point. So the fact that he even played at the time that he did actually weirdly benefited them. But you're right. For all the flack that he got, the fact that he came out there and played when he wasn't healthy, and now he's suffering the consequences of it. You're right. It definitely made him look better.
and he left that situation. People were so happy that happened. So I think he's picked up a lot of new fans. I mean, people have always going to follow his brand and everything. Like, I'm not saying his social media numbers have gone up because people are going to follow you whether they like you or not. But
right.
I think, and he wants to be liked. So I think this has been a great story for him to go and do this. Not to say that he's doing it entirely on his own, but him and Kyrie, as opposed to playing with 3 other All-Stars.
Yeah, it's a lot more balanced. I agree. It's a lot more. The Warriors just felt like such a juggernaut to me. I mean, just 3 offensive weapons. It was just too. I mean, I don't know how you could ever stop them. It was incredible.
Since you like the movie reference, I got another movie comparison too.
All right.
This is going back to the Kawhi stuff, though, so we're going to backpedal here for a second.
Okay.
All right. So, the whole we were making jokes about Kawhi and LeBron. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Talladega Nights with John C. Reilly, where he says to Ricky Bobby, and he's like, "Hey, maybe I could come first sometime." And then, Ricky Bobby says, "Yeah, but then I would be second." Oh, you're right. That makes sense. I guess LeBron would be. He would be Ricky Bobby in this situation.
Yeah, he wouldn't want to play second fiddle. You're right. He wouldn't want to be the Cal Naughton, you know.
Yeah, and so Kawhi is kind of like...
That's good. I like that.
Kawhi's kind of like, why would I want to be that guy who goes second?
Yeah. No, of course not. Of course not.
But
that's good.
The Nets are going to be weird this year because it'll be Kyrie's team for a whole year. How do you project that to go? What are you expecting?
Well, I gained a lot of respect for the Nets this past year. I think they've got a really good coach that nobody really knows about in Kenny Atkinson, and they've done a good job making something out of nothing. And they took 3 chances on 3 kind of players no one really cared about, noticed, and Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, and Jared Allen. And so they've got 3 really solid players right there. And, I mean, D'Angelo Russell was really good last year. And they ended up making the playoffs, which was something that I thought was never going to happen until they got some high draft picks and some young players, and which they never got. They never got the high draft picks and the young players. They kind of took some chances on players, and they've really done a good job making something out of nothing. So to me, I see it as they got pretty much the same team, and you just take D'Angelo Russell, put Kyrie Irving in there, and so I think that they'll probably hover around the 6th or the 5th seed around there. And they're going to be a team that if KD does get back by the playoffs, I mean, nobody's going to want to play them in the first round. But they'll probably be a lower seed if I had to guess. But I still think they'll make the playoffs with Kyrie because I think they have already playoff caliber team that surprised a lot of people. And D'Angelo Russell and Kyrie have similar games. I think Kyrie's a lot better. But I think it'll translate well with that switch. And then when KD comes back, it'll be really, really intriguing to see how good that team really is.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw the Nets play the Bulls at the United Center back in January, and the Nets were doing okay at the time. They were above 500. They were in the playoff mix at the time. But I remember being like, these are 2 bad teams I'm seeing.
Right. You would never think the Nets would be any good. I mean, I thought they had just screwed themselves for years from that Boston trade.
Yeah,
they're never going to get top picks. Free agents won't go there. They're going to be playing with like scrap players, and they've done they made the playoff, which is incredible. Like they've done a really nice job with the situation they've dealt. And now they've been rewarded. Now they have 2 All-Stars.
They were a little bit ahead of the curve in this strategy of like, all right, so you want to clear cap space. We'll take that. We'll take Mozgov off your hands. Give us D'Angelo Russell, and that was brilliant.
Was so smart. That was really smart.
You're starting to see some other teams do it. I think Atlanta is starting to do some stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Atlanta will be good in a couple of years. They still probably need maybe 3-4 years, but they got some really good young players that nobody's really talking about. So and they're doing exactly what you just said. They got rid of a lot of the big contracts. And are kind of building around with a lot of cap space and some young players.
Yeah. So It's interesting. We'll talk about D'Angelo Russell in a second. Actually, no. Let's talk about him now. Let's talk about D'Angelo Russell and the role he plays in this. To tell you the truth, before I hadn't really, I know like for a few weeks we were starting to hear that Kyrie wanted to go to Brooklyn. And I was sort of like, it's kind of weird that they're going to swap D'Angelo Russell out because it just felt so right last year.
Yeah, and he had a terrific season. I mean, he was the second overall pick, so people kind of assumed he was going to have a good season or a good career rather. And he was not. I mean, he wasn't terrible with the Lakers, but he wasn't really quite as good as people thought he was going to be. And last year, I mean, he lived up to the hype. He was as good as people thought he was going to be last year. And you're right. There were the rumblings of like, okay, Kyrie's wants to go to the Nets, and how does D'Angelo Russell factor into this? And I'm like, so they really can't play together.
Yeah.
So yeah, they pretty much just swapped him out.
Yeah, but obviously you do that because even though Kyrie, you do wonder a little bit about if there's any baggage there, but Kyrie's bringing Kevin Durant with him, so it's a no-brainer.
Right, exactly. What was more impressive to me was the Warriors' savvy in this situation. To really kind of turn, it wasn't really not a depleting situation, but kind of all right, still being able to maintain a competitive roster when it was kind of a changing of the guard, the breaking up of the dynasty, to still be able to kind of pull out an NBA All-Star. It'll be interesting to see how the three of them play together, but to be able to at least add a piece when they lost Kevin Durant was really impressive to me, how they did that. After it looked like it was just going to be like, okay, the Warriors dynasty is over, they're just going to go back to the way things were. To be able to add an All-Star was really impressive to me.
He really fell into their lap because how often does a team lose its best player, and I'm referring to Brooklyn, losing their best player from the year before while adding the best player from another team?
Yeah,
and
that's
so
what happened.
And in a situation where neither was going to come back, D'Lo couldn't really come back. It did seem like they really wanted him back. They were bringing Kyrie instead. Durant had the opportunity to come back, but this fell into their lap. Obviously, you want to keep Kevin Durant if you can, but this is the next best thing that they were able to pull off because in terms of cap space, I don't think they would have if D'Lo was just on the open market and this was not a sign and trade, I don't think this would have worked out.
No, you're right. It wouldn't have worked out. And that's why it's just so impressive the way they did it and the way that they just at least made something out of nothing,
Yeah, so if Kevin Durant signs with the Knicks, it's like, okay, maybe you can get I don't even know who plays for the Knicks anymore.
RJ Barrett, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm trying to think of a veteran guy who would leave the team, the best player.
There's nobody. There's nobody on that roster.
Yeah, so they were fortunate that he picked a team in the other conference, not in the West. He goes to the Nets, and they got a 23-year-old all-star who has the potential to grow his game.
Right. It was really impressive.
Yeah. No one saw that coming.
No one saw that coming. Another crazy move from the offseason.
Yeah. And then we also had Jimmy Butler bolting to Miami.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Jimmy Butler is just such an interesting person to me.
Yeah.
I don't really know if he knows what he wants, like, out of his career. Because, I thought, he didn't ask to leave Chicago, but he did ask to leave Minnesota. And I'm kind of like, he wants to play for a contender, have a big role, and the Sixers were a great fit for him.
Yeah, he got it.
Maybe personalities clashed, and maybe he wants to be the alpha dog, and he probably isn't the best player on that team. I think Embiid's probably a little bit better, but still, he's
still their closer in the last 2 minutes on that team.
And they were a shot. I mean, let's say Kawhi's shot bounces off the wrong way. I mean, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals.
It goes to overtime.
It goes to overtime, and then they, but still, they might have had.
They were very close.
Right, they were very close in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Who knows if they had made the Eastern Conference, what would have happened. So to me, the fact that they have a shot to compete every single year now, and he had a prominent role in that team. Something else might have been going on, but Miami, they're not a bad team, but they're not going to compete for the Eastern Conference title. I mean, they might
It's
make
like a 7
playoffs,
seed.
but yeah, they're a 7, 8, 6, something like that. They're not going to be. They're not up there with Milwaukee and Boston and Toronto and Brooklyn competing for the Eastern Conference title. So it was weird to me that he was so adamant to make that move to Miami. But there might be something else going on that we don't know about, or maybe he hasn't quite made up his mind what he wants out of his career. But I thought that the Sixers were a great situation for him. But that's just from an outsider's view.
Well, maybe him and Westbrook are buddies, and maybe this has been in the works for a little bit, and they were keeping a tight seal on stuff. Now Westbrook's on the trade market.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be a really interesting move as well. I think it is probably time for him to leave Oklahoma City. I think it's time for OKC to probably start their rebuild. But yeah, maybe there's something going on. I don't know. It would be if Russell Westbrook got on the move, that would be extremely interesting to me.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, those have been the whispers over the past week.
Yeah, they have been, because it's kind of like, all right, all the other stars have left OKC. It's probably time for Russ to move on as well. So we'll see what happens. That would be the last bombshell of the offseason.
Yeah, but the Thunder could decide to keep him because that's been their most popular player in the history of their franchise since moving to Oklahoma City, and there's value to that. There's value to all the money you're going to make off of him and the entertainment he provides. So
yeah,
who knows?
A great point. That's a great point.
And they're still a playoff team with him, probably.
Yeah, they even before Paul George, you're right, they were a playoff team between when Kevin Durant left and when Paul George got there. But the West is significantly better than I think, or from top to bottom, significantly better. And you still got all these teams that didn't make moves that are still going to be really good, like the Nuggets and the Blazers, who didn't really make any big name moves, but they have some really good pieces that are only going to get better. And now you throw the Clippers and the Lakers in there. Obviously the Warriors there's still some teams that are just so good. So I think it'll be I think they can still have a shot to make the playoffs, but I would not be surprised if they felt this was the time to move on from Russ.
How about that Mike Conley trade, too?
Yeah, that's probably the best move that no one's really talking about because it kind of flew under the radar. And that's really how Mike Conley's kind of been his whole career. He hasn't really gotten a whole lot of attention.
Never made an all-star team.
Yeah, which is ridiculous to me. But honestly, it's exactly what Utah needed. They haven't had a point guard, or at least obviously a caliber, or high quality point guard like Mike Conley, but just his veteran leadership, I think, will be huge for that team that has a lot of young pieces, like obviously Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But to have a guard like him, who's a shot making pass first point guard, will be huge for that team. And Utah, people forget they were, they were the 5 seed and played Houston really competitively. And Donovan Mitchell kind of had, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't as good as his first year. And if he takes another step, Utah could be a really, really good team. So the fact that they added Mike Conley was a really, really good move. And no one's really paying attention to it, which is interesting to me. But I was a huge fan of that move.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
No, thank you.
Let's see. Are there any other moves, like in terms of big moves, that we did not mention?
In terms of big moves, nothing comes to mind. I'll take a look, but nothing really. That's about as much as I could think of. Okay,
I'm going to ask you in a second about if there were any under the radar signings that you like. But before we do that, let's count the teams that we see as viable contenders in each conference.
Yeah.
Let's start with the East. Okay.
Yeah. So you
Sixers,
yep.
Celtics, Bucks.
Yep. Nets probably.
Nets. I'd say I put the Pacers in there with Oladipo healthy.
Yeah, I'll put the Pacers in there.
That's 5. I don't think Raptors are.
No, probably not anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably 5 right there.
5 right there. And even like, let's say, all right, I need to look at these. I need to look at the teams real quick. I think that you might have some potential upsets in the playoffs too, where maybe you.
Yeah, I mean, especially we'll see what Brooklyn does. I mean, they're the kind of wild card here.
Yeah.
Because we don't really know how long KD is going to be out, and he has a chance to, if he comes back right when the playoffs start or maybe in the second round. I mean, they're definitely a team that nobody will want to play.
So you got 5. I see 5 teams. Are you on board with all 5 of those teams?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and in the West, why don't you count out the West for me?
I mean, we got a bunch. So obviously, we got the 2 teams in LA, Lakers, Clippers, Warriors. I'll throw the Nuggets in there because I really like the Nuggets. I'll throw Portland in there. That's 5. I'm trying to think who else.
Utah.
Yeah, I'll throw Utah in there probably. I mean, if Donovan Mitchell has a good season, absolutely. That's 6.
The others, I don't know if any of the others are. I think that's 6. Maybe Houston.
Yeah,
seems like they're coming apart.
Yeah, I never know what to make of Houston. I really don't. So yeah, but still, 6 teams that could potentially win the West is amazing, and 11 teams total that could potentially make. Or potentially win the NBA championship is about as wide open, I think, as we've had in a long time.
That's a third of the league.
Yeah, that's amazing. That really
is amazing. Maybe Houston is a team that could be our potential dark horse when they get in as a 7 or 8 seed and they
that's not a 7. That's not a 7 or 8 that I think anybody would want to play.
Maybe the Spurs are another team who could do that. I don't think the Spurs are going to win a championship, but I think maybe they're a team that makes some noise.
Yeah, I agree too. I don't think you'd ever want to play the Spurs. The Spurs are just, we got to see how their young pieces develop. Maybe DeMar DeRozan has a great offseason. I think they do make the playoffs. I don't know if they're a contender though.
So those are 8 teams, and that's not even counting Oklahoma City and. I like Sacramento.
Yeah, they've got a nice young core. We'll see it. We'll see if they take some steps with Luke Walton. But it's about time Sacramento started winning some games. I mean, when's the last time they were good? Like 15 years ago.
Yeah, Chris Webber days.
Right.
They've been in the lottery so many years, but
they always get they get like the 4th or 5th pick, and then it's like, okay, it's not really an all-star yet, but yeah.
Yeah, and the Hornets always get like the 7th or 8th pick.
Yeah, I know it's always frustrating.
And then Michael Jordan will always pick the best college player.
Oh my gosh, he needs to stop making decisions for that front office. He really does.
And a lot of people like Dallas too.
Yeah, I don't know if this will be Dallas next year, but they're team international over there, and they got probably the best young player in the NBA in Doncic, and. They just added Goran Dragic, which I really like.
I love that pick. I think he's underrated.
I think so too, and I think he's kind of really what they need here. They're kind of searching for a point guard to go along with Luka, and obviously they still got Kristaps Porzingis and Valpo. Shout out Ryan Broekhoff.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I think they're not doing a bad job. I think they're doing a good job. I think they might just need one more year to progress. But I would not be shocked if they ended up at an 8 or a 7 seed or around there, because they do got some really young players or really good young pieces and probably the best young player in the NBA.
Peter, here's the thing. I've been so down on the NBA for the last year or two, and I'm a basketball junkie. I love this stuff, and now it's all coming back. I'm like,
I know.
This is great because
It's awesome.
even these teams, I'm looking at the standings from last year. 13th, 14th, and 15th best teams in the West last year. Pelicans, Mavs, and Suns. All those teams are going to be interesting and fun to watch this year.
Right. It's going to be a really exciting year for the NBA.
Yeah, I'm like, just get 2K out right now. I'm ready to buy it.
Oh man, I'm sure a lot of people feel the exact same way.
I want to watch some. I want to watch some games. We'll see if the Bulls can make a stride this year.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm already riding my cows off. I mean, I like what they're doing, but I'm just like, you know what? They just aren't talented enough yet. And
I said a couple weeks ago on the podcast, I said I really like the Garland pick. I think him and Sexton, that's the potential to be, Lillard and McCollum or Hield and De'Aaron Fox or one of these really nice backcourt combos. I think that's got some potential right there.
I agree. I love the pick. We got too many of the LeBron role players still on the team once we get Tristan Thompson out of there and all those guys, and I think we can start adding and building. But I just know that they're just too young and just not talented quite enough yet. But I do really like Darius Garland. I think that was a great move, and hiring John Beeline, I think it was all really good decisions. But it's just LeBron just leaves you decimated. He really does. There's just not. It's a process to try to rebuild. It really is.
That's the thing that's so weird. Is like, what if he leaves the Lakers after, let's not say this year, but in 2 years, okay? And now all of a sudden, Anthony Davis, we'll see what his future is. But
yeah, it's not a very good team.
I mean, it seems like there's always scraps right after. So what if it's just Danny Green and Avery Bradley, Lance Stevenson?
You're right. That's not a very good team. That's a borderline playoff team at best,
So they're going for it now, but
right, it's the way to do it.
Yeah, it'll be very fun to watch. Were there any under the radar free agent signings that you liked?
Yeah, so I got two, and we kind of already talked about one, but the one I really like is the Warriors signing Willie Cauley-Stein from the Kings.
Yeah,
he's always been a really intriguing player to me since he was at Kentucky because he can guard multiple positions. He finishes really well around the rim, and to me, just watching the Warriors the past couple of years, that's really all they need from their center. They don't really need their center to step out, hit threes. They just need somebody to go in there, protect the rim, play good defense, and set screens. And just when the other three are guarded, they leave them open. And so he hasn't really performed that well in Sacramento. But I think that the Warriors give him a much better opportunity for him to kind of blossom and kind of grow. We talked about Pat Beverly earlier. I thought that was a really good re-signing for the Clippers to make sure they prioritized him, even before bringing in Kawhi and even before bringing in Paul George, just because he's such a veteran leader, a really good defensive presence for that organization. And then I also really like what the Pelicans did this whole offseason. Obviously, getting Zion, that was kind of a no-brainer. But they signed J.J. Redick and Derek Favors, who are two good veteran players. They're high production players. You know what you're going to get from them. And then they also had two really good draft picks, other than Zion, and Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who are both really good players too. So I like that their signings as well. So that's a couple under the radar signings. What did you think? Did you have any?
Oh no, I was going to comment on a couple of those. I think the Willie Cauley-Stein one, that's another guy I think would have fit the Celtics very nicely.
Yeah, he would have. The Warriors got to him first though.
Yeah, I really like Favors a lot. I've had him on my fantasy team the last couple of years, and he puts together a lot of 17 and 10s, and he's quietly
very, very consistent.
Yeah, he's
which is
very
good
player.
For a young team like the Pelicans, you want players like that are, consistent, no nonsense role players, and JJ Redick and Derek Favors are exactly that. they get their job done. They're consistent, everyday guys, and that's huge for a young team.
Yeah. I like Malcolm Brogdon with the Pacers.
Yeah, that's a really good one too. He's a great player. He is a really good player. That was a smart move signing him.
I like Bogdanovich with the Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are quite a few of these that are nice ones to look at. Portland has shaken up their roster a little bit, which is interesting.
Hassan Whiteside, yeah.
Yeah. I think him and Lillard are buddies.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So it's lots of interesting stuff. I do like that Pelicans team a lot. I would buy stock in them.
Yeah, David Griffin was the GM in Cleveland when LeBron re-signed, and I've always just been a huge fan of him. I think he's just a really, really good NBA executive. And so I was a really smart move by the Pelicans to hire him, and he's doing a really, really good job. And I think, obviously having Zion helps a lot, but they're putting together a lot of really good pieces around him. So they'll I don't know how good they'll be this year, but I think they're doing a good job of building toward the future.
I like Portland a lot going into this next couple of years. I think they're going to. I mean, we'll see. They've got some pieces they could potentially deal to. I was a little iffy on Zach Collins just because I thought he came out early, but I think that guy's got a really bright future.
Yeah, I do too. I agree. He probably should have stayed another year at Gonzaga, but he had such a great NCAA tournament. His hype was pretty high. But I agree. I think he'll be a good player as well.
Yeah. So they have a couple guys that if they were to, maybe another superstar becomes unhappy and they can strike, who knows? Yeah. I mean, but the roster they have right now is pretty dang good. I think they're a contender. They're maybe need to get a little better defensively somehow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that those moves definitely help them out, but you're right.
So yeah, I think we pretty much covered all the bases tonight, Peter.
Yeah, it's been a great offseason. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great. So I'll give you the chance if there's anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about. Go bring it up right now.
Nothing comes to mind. we
covered everything.
So that was really cool. The only thing I'll bring up is if you haven't seen Jackson Hayes' Summer League dunk the other day, or was it yesterday? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
You gotta look it up.
Who is this?
Jackson Hayes. He was the 8th overall pick for the Pelicans. He played at Texas. He's really interesting because he was a late bloomer. So he was like 6'1", 6'2", his sophomore, junior year in high school. Played JV on his high school team as a junior. And then grew to like 6'8" by his senior year. Started his senior year, and then Texas recruited him, and now he's about 6'10", extremely, extremely athletic, and he had one of the best dunks I think I've ever seen. So if anyone's
is it on Twitter?
Yeah, that's where I saw it was on Twitter. If you just
I'm gonna watch it right now. I'm gonna react live to this on the podcast. He
spells it like Jackson, like Jaxson. Or something like that. He spells it kind of weird.
I spelled it wrong, but I still found it. Oh, my goodness. That reminded me of the Vince Carter dunk in the Olympics from, 2000.
It was, oh, man. I couldn't believe how high he got on that. He is...
I'm going to watch that 10 times on a loop later.
That's what I did. I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
Well, Peter, is there anything that you would like to promote? Do you want to throw out your social media handle so people can get in touch and follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my all my social media is pfunk_2. So that's Twitter, Instagram. I'm a huge Twitter guy. So I'm always on Twitter all the time. So that's probably the best place to interact with me the most. It's a lot of Valpo basketball, but it's what I do for a living. So, but But yeah, it's just P Funk all lowercase _2. So yeah, I'm team follow back. So I'll make sure I help you out.
Great. Peter, I'm very proud of you, man.
No, thank you.
I'm proud of
It
you.
means a
When
lot.
I was a senior when you were a freshman.
Yeah.
And now you've graduated.
Yeah, it's
You
crazy.
are getting paid to be in coaching, and you come on the podcast and you do an excellent job in your debut, and you're gonna have to come back sometime. I know people are gonna love this.
Anytime, man. Really, anytime.
Yeah, and maybe someday you'll be bringing up, it's like you're my apprentice, and you're gonna have your own podcast, and it's gonna be bigger than mine.
I don't know if it'll be bigger than yours, but that would be pretty cool. I love podcasts.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Peter. We'll have to do this again soon.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Jack. This has been really great. This has been awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Funk. Had a great conversation with him tonight on the podcast. Had a great time talking NBA offseason and free agency. If you like what you heard tonight and you would like to hear more, subscribe to Press On Sports on iTunes, especially because the name of the podcast is going to change within the next 2 weeks to Jack Vita Show, and you don't want to miss out. You don't want to get lost in the transition. Everything is still going to be there. If you subscribe, you'll be taken care of. You'll be good. You will not have any trouble finding the podcast. It will all of the files, all of the episodes will still be there. There will just be a different name and a different logo in its place. If you would like to get in touch with me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at @TheJackVita. That's at @TheJackVita. I post a lot on Twitter about basketball thoughts, as Peter does, and other sports, and trot out some stand-up comedy sometimes in tweets as well. Tweets about faith, tweets about life. Give me a follow. Tweet at me. I've been following back left and right these days, so there's like a 99% chance I'm going to follow you back as long as your page isn't super negative or super political. As long as you're a kind person, I will follow you back, and I look forward to getting in touch with you there. Tweet me your thoughts on this podcast, what you think about the biggest player moves so far. Are the Clippers the front runners? I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts. So tweet at me at @TheJackVita. Coming up on the podcast, I'm going to do an episode on Toy Story 4 with Jason Karras and our good friend Chase Beebe. We will welcome him to the podcast, another one of our boys from Valpo. So that should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to getting into that and finally talking about Toy Story 4, big time movie. And there'll be some other sports podcasts soon. I can guarantee you that. Thank you so much to everyone for listening to the podcast. Subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review. As always, have a great day. Bring in the dancing lobsters.